For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Thabi Madiba. Researcher and analyst Professor Raymonds Suttner joins me to discuss the Northwest uprising and restoring democratic values and practices. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
Residents of Mahikeng and surrounding villages were on a rampage last week calling for Northwest Premier Mahumapelo to resign. So do you think the ANC, led by Ramaphosa and government, will recall Mahumapelo?
Yeah, your language is interesting. On a rampage. On a rampage suggests something mindless, which I refer to in the article. And rampage, words like rampage tend to colour, the question tends to colour what the answer may be. There was an uprising, I'm suggesting, and people did something which I think are regrettable, but we've got to try to understand it. I don't know. I reckon if the ANC doesn't recall Mahumapelo, it is looking for continued unrest in the area because there's a lot of evidence of corruption. There's a lot of evidence of neglect of people's basic needs, which is in the Constitution that you've got to meet basic needs. And there's a lot of instability in consequence of this situation. Even as the rising is carrying on, and it's spreading yesterday to 2 new places at least. Even as it was continuing, you have new revelations in the Sunday Times that 1.5 million or 1.2 million, I can't remember, gift of cows that is meant for small farmers is given by Mahumapelo to Zuma. So I think it's difficult for them not to remove him. But you don't know what the balance of forces is in the ANC and to what extent Ramaphosa feels secure in his position. He's fired some people, but you saw if you look at today's paper, the report, and last night as well, on the ANC meeting in KZN, where basically the decision that they were not ready to hold provincial elections appears to meeting with a lot of opposition, and Esma Khashule has said they've come to the conclusion that KZN is ready. And at the meeting yesterday, it's reported in the Star, there was a lot of anti-Ramaphosa actions. But at the same time, some of the people who were in the Zuma camp, like Nomvula Mokunyane, standing behind Ramaphosa, singing in support of Ramaphosa. So the people who were Zumites, some of them are crossing over, but are sufficient of them crossing over, and are there sufficient people who back him for him to remove Mahumapelo? But if he doesn't remove him, there's big problems also in terms of instability and lack of delivery of basic needs.
And talking about the 1.5 million gift cattle to President Jacob Zuma, while people in Northwest suffers without jobs, houses, and proper health care. So don't you think the ANC will have an impact on this?
Well, you know, the ANC, it's really a question of the ANC must take that into account in their decision, but it's a question of the police and the National Prosecuting Authority. Will they investigate this in good faith, and will they bring charges? Because if it is the fraud that it appears to be on the face of it, I don't have all the evidence, I've just read the Sunday Times. If there is this fraud, it's not a question only for the ANC. For the ANC is the question, what is the future of Mahumapelo? And that arises independent of that, but this 1.5 million, if it is true, is an additional reason to get rid of him. But the main thing is it's a legal matter.
And it is common with protesters to loot and destroy foreign-owned businesses. And do you think this is some of xenophobia, or are they trying to make their voices heard to the government?
Well, it is xenophobic in the sense that these are people who have made South Africa their home, and many ANC people and other liberation fighters made homes of not necessarily those states from which those people come, but states in Africa, their home for many, many years. And it's very sad that they are doing this. But I think we've got to ask ourselves why it is that people who've got nothing to do with the reason for protests are also targeted. Because the evidence seems to show that Somali and other traders in the townships are very successful, and they're successful because they will sell, for example, one cigarette at a time. If you can't afford a packet, you can buy one cigarette. They will give credit. And they're open all hours. So people who come back from work too late to buy at shops know that in the township these traders will be open. So in general, people actually want these traders there. But there's a, you know, when you are despairing and your voice is not being heard, you tend to target innocent parties. One of the reasons given for domestic abuse is that some people believe that they are being abused, say, in work or in the public sphere, and they are powerless. The only person they can hit back at is their spouse. And that doesn't excuse them. I'm just saying that is sometimes given as a reason that people feel the sense of powerless in relation to certain situations. They then hit out at something that's got nothing to do with it, and someone who's got nothing to do with it, some people who've got nothing to do with it, but it relates to the sense of powerlessness, the sense that the vote is not delivering what they need.
And do you agree with the DA that Mahumapelo remains in office signals that Ramaphosa cutting his business trip at United Kingdom was just a PR stunt?
I don't think it's a PR stunt for him to cut his business things, because cutting his business was a very serious thing to do, in the sense that PR-wise, it was important for him to stay there and bring back another 100 million of investment or whatever he's trying to do. So that he lost on the PR level there by coming to Northwest. But by coming to Northwest and saying, well, this needs deliberations and all of this, I think that's all very rational, and it's all correct processes. But the situation is very urgent. And you've got the SANDF running hospitals at the moment. For days, hospitals were closed. So that's because Northwest is not like Johannesburg, where you can just move them to lots of other functioning hospitals and things like this. It's not got a lot of facilities. So when those facilities are, one major facility is crippled, there's only one or two other major facilities, at least in the Mahikeng area, but further out there's not so many facilities. It's developed since 1994, but it's still not a well-developed province.
And lastly, just like former President Jacob Zuma, Mahumapelo doesn't see anything wrong in his doings. He said that the protest had nothing to do with service delivery, but political wrangling. Do you agree with him?
You know, I think that there are people who would want to get rid of him anyway, and that they see this as a good opportunity. But the fact of the matter is that those people, you know, it means that the people who protested are just ignorant and they were misled by conspirators. People are not stupid. They know they're not getting, they've been without housing, with all these things, while Mahumapelo's son gets 1 million bursary from Denel and things like this. So it may be that there is some factional element, but I think on that scale, it's not possible that it's purely conspiratorial. it's a popular rising which has got features that are abusive, but is nevertheless a popular rising in the sense that people feel that their voices are not heard and their vote doesn't bring them better life.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
That was Professor Raymonds Suttner speaking to Creamer Media's Polity about the Northwest uprising and restoring democratic values and practices.